Welcome to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's show is an extremely exciting and scary update to probably my most successful story and video yet, The Monster, and this is The Monster Part 2. Thank you, big shout to BicIsMyPensName, the author of this series. Hugely successful story from the channel. Can't thank you enough, Bic, for your great work, and I hope you are happy with the job I do on this one as well. Without further ado, guys, let's get into part 2 of The Monster, entitled The Return. Let's get straight into that. Continued from part 1, as dictated to Bic is my pen's name. Come on now, don't look so glum. Stop fiddling with that reel and get busy. You knew that people would prefer a sweet fun lie to a bitter harsh truth. That's why they don't read your stuff too much to begin with. You're always reminding them that there's things lurking at the edges of perception, waiting to prey on them. At least we had some good fishing. You were the one that agreed to write with a partner. If you don't like it, maybe you should spice up your stories. Fine, be that way. You're the one that insists on writing true stories. It's not like it's that hard to fool the masses. People will never like your punch up on true stories as much as the fantastical tales someone else makes up. Just keep trying to scare people like some word processing boogeyman for all I care. Now, hurry up and get to it. The people want to know the rest of the story. The vision I had received after hunting the jaguar had awakened hidden knowledge within me. I thought about it for hours on the flight back to the States. Like a lot of folks from Michigan, I had heard the tales of Dogman, but I had never really believed them. I had mocked some of them, rationalized other ways, up until the vision. If you had asked me what I was more likely to believe in between Sasquatch and Dogman, well, I would have said Sasquatch. The idea of an upright bipedal canine was just too foreign to me. I mean, they're fascinating, really. Creatures that push the boundaries of what's natural and supernatural. It's probably more accurate to say that our own definitions have always been pretty limited. For those of you following this story, would you hate me more if I told you that up until that point, I had thought Linda Godfrey was a kook? Humble pie can taste awfully bitter. But I'm not one to shy away from the truth, especially when said truth offers me such a wonderful and unique opportunity. Now, a lesser man would have chalked up what I saw to the hallucinations in the shaman's drink. I knew better. I saw them. Packs of them. Massive ones, loners, young ones, old ones, and things that couldn't possibly be, but were. I saw these creatures in places I knew, places I had been. There was no way I was going to ignore that. No way I could pass an opportunity to hunt that. So, from the comfort of a business class seat, I began to plot my hunt. Now, I think it's only fair to warn you, aunties and Bambiites, that I'm about to give some basic hunting advice. Considering I've used young women as dogmen bait, you can guess what I think about your trigger warnings. For the rest of you, pay attention. What I'm about to tell you may just help you out one day. Rule 1 of hunting. If you want to hunt ducks, go where the ducks are. This applies to dogmen and human women. The internet makes it so easy for women, But I'm getting ahead of myself. Nevertheless, the rule applies. If I were to go downtown Chicago and start calling like a maniac, I might get a few curious mallards to come by. If I were to go to the Shiawassee River game area and make a piddling effort, I might be rewarded with more ducks than I know what to do with. Why are you glaring at me like that? You always hunted Crow Island anyway. Are you going to tell them of all of our spots? Relax. We don't hunt that side of the state anymore. It's pretty convenient having private land after all, isn't it? Now stop interrupting. As I was saying, going in areas with high population densities of your targets is much more likely to net success than somewhere where they're pretty sparse. To find that information out, you have to do research. I am so grateful for the internet. It's made this so much easier for me. Any of you actually try to research Dogman? Sightings show up all over. But that's not good enough for me. What I was looking for were hotspots. Spots that had abnormally high sightings and encounters. Thanks to sites like The Cloaked Hedgehog, Dogman Encounters, NADP and others, this didn't take me too long. The longer part was cross-referencing all those pooled resources with the National Missing Persons database. So many people. First, you have to sort of go through all the parents kidnapping their own kids. Then, you have to discount all the ones that people wanting to be missing. And then, you have to try and figure out which ones may just be mixed up in crime. Live by the sword, die by the sword. I'm sure someone someday will make a run on me, but until that happens, I'm going to keep working on my trophy room. Even with my considerable intelligence and resources, this took a while. Background checks had to be run. Palms had to be greased for more accurate information. All in all, it was a pain. Unsurprisingly, the results lined up with the sightings and encounters hotspots. It was just nice to have statistical confirmation. Just like with the tigers and leopards, these things were territorial and were more of them. They were bound to be more interactions with people. So, I had to narrow down my choices. Let's see. Without my data in front of me, I remember a couple of hotspots for sure. There are the Loup-Garou, aka Rougarou, sightings down in the bayou of Louisiana. The Taylor, Mississippi area for sure. The land between the lakes, aka the LBL in Kentucky, and stretching into Tennessee, the Lichen Loop in Pennsylvania, and closest to home, the Bray Road area and good old northern Michigan. I had a lot of unconfirmed reports turn up throughout Texas and California as well. That was a problem though. California I could rule out right away. Any place as unfriendly to hunters and guns as that state wasn't worth my time. Hell, some of my awesome rifles are illegal in that stupid state. They could be being overrun with dogmen, and I wouldn't lose a minute of sleep over it. In fact, if I could unleash a plague of dogmen on them, I'd gladly do it. That state needs a harsh reality check. Something on the red in tooth and claw variety would do quite nicely. Texas was harder to rule out. Good people, lots of hunter-friendly areas. The problem was, most of the sightings were by illegals. Seems like the dogmen like to terrorize people as they cross the border. As tactical as these things are, it makes perfect sense. If you thrive on causing fear and misery, then what better place to do it than somewhere where you know there is a steady stream of people and they can't fight back. I didn't want to get messed up with the border issues. Too many prying eyes and too many government bodies poking around, trying to get their noses into my business. If Texas was out, so was Oklahoma. Sorry, Sooners, I'm sure it's a good hunting, but my tribal connections are in the north. Lichen Loop. Well, let's just say I've had some bad experiences in Pennsylvania in the past. I am not eager to return. Ever. Louisiana. Oh man, it was hard to rule this one out, but it came to personal preference. I don't really like the swamp. It's not the heavy, muggy air, it's just not my preference. It's not terrible, just not my preference. Same goes for the little cluster that popped up in Florida. Kentucky and Tennessee were also harder to rule out. I might hunt them in the future. I'll have to see if BicIsMyPensName is up for the trip to the LBL. If nothing else, we could do some bass and catfish fishing. No, the reason I ruled these out, at least for the initial hunts, was because the sightings here, like the ones in other southern states, tended to involve multiple pack members. This was my first time at bat. I was just trying to get on the bag, not knock one out the park. So, that pretty much leaves Michigan and Wisconsin. Sure, northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin were shorter trips, but Michigan, even though I no longer lived there, was still my home state. And if I was going to go after a dangerous predator, I wanted to do it in an environment that neutralised the home field advantage. No doubt a dogman senses trumped mine in the wild in every conceivable way, but hunting and tracking in familiar terrain might be the edge I need to bring one down, or at least keep me alive if things went south. So, step one was complete. I was going to hunt dogmen in the northwestern Michigan. High numbers of sightings, known hotspots, significantly higher than average missing persons, and it's an area I know intimately. It seems like the best of all worlds. Rule 2. Know thy prey, aka more research. Here's the thing, I have no problem blasting a hole in anything that's trying to take a chunk out of my ass, but you better believe that I want to be sure that I'm going at it with enough force to put it down. No surprises. I have a theory. I think dogmen is a collective term. So much so that I believe many Sasquatch sightings are actually mistaken dogman sightings. I mean, if you go back, way back, even earlier than the Patterson film, you can see that some of the earliest recorded sightings of Bigfoot don't match with what we've come to associate with them. If you think of Sasquatch as some lost branch of hominid, they wouldn't really have a muzzle, nor would they have pointed ears. If you take the 7 variants theory, you still have overlap with any other supernatural creatures. A type 1 canine variant could be virtually indistinguishable from a hellhound. How would I know the difference between a type 3 chow variant and a wolfman, or canine variants 2, 3, 4 and a werewolf, or a skinwalker, or any number of other boogers? Hey, don't giggle. You know what? That's how they refer to them in the South. Woolly boogers. Alright, I guess it's kind of a funny name, but it proves my point. Boogers is a catch-all term. Woolly boogers just denotes furry cryptids. Now quit interrupting, or I'll have to explain about Dueo and Snallygastus. Oh, you don't think I'll do it, huh? For those of you unaware, there are actually a fairly healthy number of dogman sightings in Maryland. It's perhaps the most overlooked and underrepresented locale for dogmen. Locales in the region call this local variant the Dueo or Deweo. It predates the Beast of Bray Road sightings considerably, and in reality, the number of sightings there may actually be greater than the Bray Road Northern Illinois area. Still, It's probably a bridge too far for most Dogmen believers, because this variant is supposed to have mortal enemies of a separate cryptid called the Snallygaster. Snallygasters are thought to haunt the DC area, but that's a different story. In any case, I chose not to hunt these areas because, again, gun laws and proximity to Pennsylvania. Fooled twice, shame on me. I won't be going back there voluntarily anytime soon. So there you have it. All of those variants and varieties, and we still haven't gone over supernatural variants. Isn't it a kind of ridiculous? I'm almost spoilt for choice. Werewolves, wolfmen, Nephilim, skinwalkers, and who knows what other kinds of creatures could be out there. At the time, my theory was dogmen were naturally occurring creatures, and that legends of werewolves were just mankind's way of explaining something terrible. In any case, I was after the canine types. If it looked like something from the Underworld movie or Van Helsing, I wanted to put bullets into it and put it on my wall. I couldn't possibly arm myself for every scenario, so when in doubt, shoot it out. I was dead set on hunting one of these things, and I wasn't about to become Dogman Chow. So, I covered my bases as best I could. I bought some holy water, silver, and a prayer book. You can't believe how expensive silver grain has gotten these days. Everyone's convinced the world's going to end. Oh well. I hand-loaded a couple of variety of different rounds. I cast my own silver grain into shot that I cooled in the holy water. As expensive as it is, I bought some silver tungsten, shot to size, 00 buckshot and tribal, and blended my shell loads in the massive 10-gauge hulls. I made up some slugs as well. I used custom molds for insanely massive rifled slugs. It took weeks of custom work to convert the brown and gold. I need the semi-auto, you see. I would have preferred a pump action for reliability, especially with all the modifications I'd made. But there is no way I could accurately repeat fire this thing without the action taking some of the punishment. I mean, we're talking 2.5 ounces of metal flying 1600 feet per second. The only thing I have that hits harder is a .460 Weatherby, and that I'll be using as my primary rifle. The pain is exquisite. It's like having the most exotically beautiful woman deliver a flying knee from a running start to your shoulder every time you touch off the trigger. The report is like having that gorgeous woman palm strike your nose and sinuses. Ha! I named her Nikita. She's my bad bitch, and I love her. A girl that's fine only deserves the finest custom tailored things. Nothing but hand loads for Nikita. I form the casings myself from virgin brass and swage her bullets with my own 2 hands. Her loads get only the freshest powder, painstakingly measured against a 6-place digital balance. I know what the ladies like. Provided this thing wasn't of absurdly unkillable supernatural variety, I had little doubt that I had all the firepower necessary to take it down. Hell, even if it was supernatural, we'd find out if its supernatural power was a match for my tech. Lots of guys these days focus on the kinetic energy of a round. The thing they forget is momentum has to be conserved too. When I shoot things with Nikita, it is like being hit by the small car. I try to keep her muzzle velocity up around 3000 feet per second. Weatherby's custom shop must love me. Everyone on YouTube's comment section is so fucking sure that to even look upon one of these things is certain death. But if that were the case, where do the stories come from? It can be a bit of hard to research something when all the fanboys and girls are so in love with the mystique that they actually hinder your hunt for knowledge. I can understand it coming for some of the channels. It doesn't help the revenue base to have people no longer scared. Too much exposure means desensitization. People love to get a little scared. just enough that they can shiver and thank their lucky stars that they're indoors and safe from the terrors that lurk in the dark. Keeping that element of mystery keeps them in business. I find it endlessly tiresome. It just tends to make my life more difficult. The research societies were almost as bad. They all wanted me to join them or go along with them, but for what? Those imbeciles actually wanted me to go out there unarmed. Can you believe that shit? Me, go out into the woods with strangers, unarmed. They must be outside of their goddamn minds. I just nearly got my ticket punched by a jaguar, and these jokers are worried about tracking around at night with minimal amount of protection. Give me a break. In any case, the amount of data to be had was limited. I called upon some of my Native American friends, but they didn't want to talk to me. BicIsMyPensName and I have enough blood and genealogical proof that we can be part of the tribe if we wish. Might even be of benefit if we wanted to live around Mount Pleasant. But some of the elders, ones that still believe in the old ways, they don't like us hanging around. Not the Potawatomi, not the Ottawas, not the Ojibwas. None of them really want us hanging around. Not that I blame them, but we're more warmly welcomed by our friends on the Crow Reservation out in Montana. It's not like it's an open condemnation, but we can be seen talking with you kind of thing. So, our information stream is limited there as well. BicIsMyPensName and I, we chose our paths. Some people, they just see it as disruptive. In Potawatomi culture, society is mostly dominated by male hierarchy. However, women have had roles as leaders and can be widely respected. It's been that way since before colonial times, if you care to look. There is a female leader in the tribe today. She knows us, she cares for us, but she doesn't like us hanging around. I think maybe we're people out of our time, or maybe an uncomfortable reminder that unpleasant things can be close to you. Maybe if we renounced our ways, she would welcome us in. I think I'd rather be despised than pitied. Besides, there are too many more monsters to hunt. Someday they'll call us back now. Now that I know the Wendigo are real and not the drunken ravings of an old man, I'm sure they'll reach out to me again sooner or later. Seems like each person I've talked to felt like talking about these things invited bad luck or drew them close to you. If it's true, then I was off to a good start. They all had different origin stories, but they were some common threads. They liked to scare people. They were guardians of places, not protectors, and the distinction is important. They also seemed unanimously in agreement that they increased presence in our world as a harbinger of bad things ahead, a precursor to the end of times. Rule 3. Be flexible. Hunt to your advantage. Every year, Michigan's DNR puts out a booklet with all the hunting rules and regulations. Every year, there is a statement to the effect of no hunting with explosive or incendiary ammunition. Well, since dogmen aren't considered a game species and a 10-gauge hole has so much real estate to deliver a projectile, I got to thinking that if worse came to worse, I'd blow a gaping hole in anything big, dark and nasty. It's about the only advantage I would have hunting one of these things. They can run faster, jump higher, hit harder, see better, smell better, and hear better than us. If some of the stories are true, they might even have some kind of infrasound to use at their discretion. Who knows if the telepathy part is true? But I can tell you, I am not going out into the woods with a tinfoil hat on. Really, the only thing I would have going for me as a hunter is technology and the guile to turn those advantages against the creature. Those of you familiar with the very first part of this story might have an inkling of how I did that. What you don't know is how I used it to take the creature down. What I will say, is that I owe a very minor apology to all the people out there claiming to have shot one and it kept coming. I very openly maligned you as panicked trigger happy yahoos. My standing claim was that it was very likely that if you thought you had seen one of these things, you were likely too scared to shoot straight. For that, I'm sorry. You may have actually hit one and it probably didn't slow it down much. My mistake. So now, all that was left for me to do was to figure out how to lure one out in a hurry. If rule 1 is to know where they are, rule 2 is to know thy prey, and rule 3 is to be flexible to the situation and adapt, then all that was left was to combine all of those and form a strategy. So that's what I did. I made a plan to use the territorial advanced senses of this creature against itself. I made a plan so that everything I did would piss this thing off. The best way to hunt isn't to stalk your game until you're tired and worn out. No, the best way to hunt game is to have it come to you. Animals and people are instinctual. They're basic. If they're hungry, lure them with food. Better yet, if they're hungry, call them weak and pathetic and challenge them to take the food you're presenting in front of them. When they strike wildly and angrily, you've won. And that's what I did. I beat one of these things. All of you still want to know how I did it, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Those of you paying attention will notice that earlier I said business class, not first class. It's not that I can't afford first class, it's that I'm always hunting. Business class is an excellent hunting grounds. It's so full of jerks. It allows me to discriminate in my tastes. I could be very happy ridding the world of one more of these pompous turds. It's the perfect opportunity to study what arrogance looks like. My God, I'm getting flushed just thinking about it. All those fat, spoiled men and women all thinking they're deserving of fucking something. I'm not having a fucking clue. Fuck! I've been doing hunting business class for years. When I learned that little nugget, I hunted people in business class so much that I finally learned why some guys are in favour of antler point restrictions. It's almost shooting fish in a barrel. I mean, can you imagine? Can you grasp what I'm telling you? The rest of you are just so simple. It's like you're begging to be someone's prey. You're all just a couple of button pushes away from ending up as someone's trophy. So why should I deny myself? Sorry. Sometimes I get carried away. Like I said, this isn't a build-up to the most dangerous game. But I can and do hunt people on occasion. Typically, I don't kill them. Contrary to popular belief, you can do catch and release hunting. The problem is hunting people like animals is no fun. People are terribly inept at surviving and acting like real animals in the wild. They only act like emotional animals. So people are more fun to hunt like people. The cute black stewardess I singled out made the rest of the trip enjoyable once I had stopped brooding and started hunting again. The chase was tantalising, I have to admit. Breaking through the mask of polite courtesy and feigned interest, I see in her true face twisted in a grimace of lust and pleasure was thoroughly rewarding. I wonder how long it took her to hide her accent. That little southern twang came out only after I had her spasming in ecstasy really got me going. I think maybe I owe the arseholes sitting around me a debt of gratitude. If they hadn't acted like such completely entitled self-righteous twats, I would have had an opening to seduce that young woman. And really, without her modest but sensual curves pressing into me while in the throes of passion, I wouldn't have realised that I would need to hunt for bait or a user lure to bag a dogman. It wasn't until my mind was completely focused on her and thrill of hunting her and then taking her that I realised as a predator I would need a prey animal or a lure to bring a dogman in. So, Relax. I didn't do anything unpleasant to the stewardess. In fact, after our very pleasant liaison, she handed me her number for when her route back to town would be. When she was leaving, I slipped her a fairly expensive lady's chopard into the pocket of her uniform as a thank you for the inspiration. I hope she checks her pockets before she washes that uniform. She might be fun to see again. I'd love to see the reaction of her friends when they see the Imperial across her wrist. For those of you that don't know, the value of your watch is a way that people in the service industry know if you're big money or not. You want to open doors, get treated like a VIP? Flash a watch that could feed a typical American household for a year and watch how differently you get treated. I keep a spare lady's watch around for things like this. Sometimes it's too easy. Lots of ladies out there think that mate poaching is legitimate strategy for snagging a man. Hunting is almost too easy with them. You make up a sob story about a relationship on the rocks, about a gift meant to open the conversation, about her not respecting you, yada yada yada, and she's jumping on you before you finish your second drink. At other times, I'd like to think it makes for a nice gift like this. If nothing as crass as a payment, but legitimately when the urge strikes me, and someone in particularly helpful or useful to me, I like to reward them. The inspiration I received while with that young woman was more than worth the cost of some Swiss timepiece. After I had landed and retrieved my luggage, including the rifle, I began the preparations for the hunt. It was time to buy memberships to some dating sites and background checks. Wow, hope you guys enjoyed that. It's been a while, we've been waiting for part 2. Please do let us know down below in the comments what you think, guys. Of course, please do like and share. If you haven't subscribed to DMT, please hit that subscribe button. Your support is more than welcome. Really happy with the way things are going, guys. Hope you're all having a wonderful weekend. And remember,
be safe, not sorry.